I wear a mask with a smile. Oh, hi. I should probably wear a mask so you don't have to see my ugly eye, but hi. Welcome to the musical show, the show that no one watches, and I still do for no reason, where I just talk about music for about half an hour. Yay! Everyone's favourite pastime. Alright, let's go. Starting off with just a bunch of albums I've missed because I've gone back to a lot of shit. But this one isn't shit, it's actually pretty good. Hee! Cara Jackson's Wide of the Earth Give Us People to Love, which is ridiculously beautiful. Oh shit, I forgot one. Give me 2 secs. Okay, I'm back. This album is ridiculously beautiful. I can't talk. The poetic lyricism really explains why she won an award for poetry very well. And the instrumentals are mellow when they need to be and progress into like the sort of heavenly angelic choiry type of shit. When they feel that they need to, they progress beautifully, especially the longer cuts. And songs such as the title track, Why Does the Earth Give Us People to Love, and Free are just unbelievably good, and it just blows my mind how beautiful they overall are. However, when the songs aren't long, they just feel like insanely unneeded, and just why? There's no need. There's literally no need. Say, for example, Recognised, Reprise adds absolutely nothing. Even Recognised doesn't add that much, as great as the song is. If it was just like the really long songs, which there were still like 7 or 8 of them, if not more, this would probably be up there with one of the best albums of the year. I mean, it still is, but you know, you get my point. It would be up there with like the very best, but it's just still top 10 for sure. But without those bloody shorter songs that just, as I said, feel insanely unneeded and just add nothing to the album, it would genuinely be probably around like a 9.7, 9.8. But unfortunately, they do exist. And while this album is still a godsend and beautiful in every way, I do feel like it could have been even better. 8.9 out of 10, though, still. That's how fucking good the longer tracks are. Moving on to Liturgy with 93696, which is chaotic and very unusual, even in black metal, in probably the best way possible. This isn't just a traditional black metal album that sounds like every other black metal album, as it has some tracks that feel a lot more electronic, and even the black metal tracks sound a lot more different to other black metal tracks I've heard. One of the best songs of the album is Antigone 2, which is a great black metal track and also showcases the sort of electronic or gospel side of the album. I can't remember which one it was. But yeah, it's beautiful. There are some genuine masterpieces on this album, like the title track, which is a 14-minute epic, an absolute beaut. 93696, yeah, what a track. But when it isn't black metal, again, the songs just don't work as well. They feel emptier, and they also just aren't cohesive in the actual album. Think Angel of Emancipation, for example. Like, you don't need, though, if it was just full-on black metal, which it very well could have been, it would probably still be 10 track long. Again, it would be probably 9.7 territory, if not more. But still, this album is beautiful. It did experiment a lot, which I do still admire what it tried to do. I don't think it entirely worked. There were some good tracks in the more electronic, angelic sort of stuff. But, you know, not every single experiment worked perfectly. They all worked well enough, but the black metal worked the best, and the black metal was phenomenal. Everything else was just decent, and that did bring the album score down. But still, this album is one of the best this year. Again, 8.7 out of 10. Moving on to Maruha with Nocnaria. Probably the post-punk band that's experienced the most growth this year. They just seem like a typical post-punk band, considering they're really bloody good, and remind you a hell of a lot like Slint. Thunder has a great instrumental, but it's nothing that hasn't already been done. The weird spoken word passages thing that are meant to be the vocals, I guess, just suck. Blind Spot has the same flaws, but it's slightly more basic. The Tinker, however, is a beautiful song, but it's just too long for what it is, which is just a sax solo with a tiny bit of vocals at the end. But Kakisto is a phenomenal beast of a track, and everything a punk track should be. It has fitting vocals that I love, a beautiful instrumental, and the way the song progresses and passes, it's just so good. It's a perfect song. Overall, it is basic in some ways, yes, and sometimes too long, and I don't love the production on the first two tracks, but this EP is a brilliant showcase of potential if they find their own, like they did towards the end. If you're into Black Country New Road, you'll love this, basically. One of them. One to look out for sure in the post-punk scene. 8.5 out of 10, looking forward to when they make a full length. I'd also look forward to a future Utopia album. Their EP, We Were, We Still Are, it does the whole indie Tame Impala-esque FIFA song thing pretty damn well. It does it really well. Make It Home is a beautiful track. This time is a complete rip-off of Tame Impala, but like it's a banger, so yeah. Your Love is a great song made amazing by the beautiful vocals of Big Big, and the title track and its interlude just worked, even if the rapping wasn't amazing. I admire what it tried to do, and I think it did mostly work, and this is a great showcase of potential, and it has some, and it's just banger after banger after banger, and like towards the end you get some absolute beauts, and this surprised me. It's genuinely great. 8.3 out of 10. Moving on to Wednesday, like the Netflix show, Rat Saw God. And yeah, the production is practically perfect. The instrumentals are beautiful, albeit basic as hell sometimes. And the vocals were sometimes awful and sometimes incredible. And the screaming was powerful when it was utilised, and it was utilised really well. Tracks such as the 8-minute epic Bull Believer are phenomenal and have great progressions, but this does have its odd duds, such as like Turkey Vultures. That one is basic and it goes too far with like the strange lyricism. And what's so funny is just mid. The instrumental sucks and the vocals don't work. It's just not very good. Overall, though, this album is a peach and has some beautiful instrumentals, and I honestly enjoy it more than the rating suggests. 7.9 out of 10. It's brilliant. Unless they already have in the past, because they have made a few albums that I haven't listened to. I wonder when they're going to make their masterpiece, because they will make one, or either that or they already have, I don't know. Moving on to Model Actrice with Dog's Body, which, yeah, it can be jaw-droppingly good, of course it can. I do concede that, but I do think this album is too quirky for its own good. And Pure Mode, for example, absolutely sucks. This album defo has its highlights, such as the beautiful masterpiece Maria, and when it does work, it works really well. But like the whole genre of post-punk, when it doesn't, it just sucks. The vocals didn't always work, the instrumentals were too weird sometimes, and overall, this album was inconsistent with only some experiments working. Definitely overrated for sure, but when they perfect the flaws that are on here, they could genuinely make a masterpiece. It ain't this one, unlike what most people are saying, but they could do, and they probably will do. 6.8 out of 10, I will still look out for these. Moving on to Humble Souls, DJ Clue and RJ's album Humble Souls, which is mostly trap and boom bap mediocrity, to be honest, but it does have some bangers. The beat on Vic Chop's Soul is incredible, and obviously Vic Benzer had a great verse. And there are an array of solid beats too in general. The Take Heed beat Cypher was brilliant, but this album is mostly just average and uninteresting. Think like Love Is a Mixtape, which also just sucked ass, or like Clockwork. It's insanely inconsistent. It can be brilliant at its best, but at its worst, mediocre, basic, and uninteresting boom bap, or what it usually is, basic, boring, uninteresting, mediocre trap. Had more potential, I think, than it showed, basically. And it's pretty good, but I do feel like it could have been better. There are elements to the album that I don't like. 6.5 out of 10. But at the bottom of the albums I felt I needed to get to is Zach Bryan's self-titled. This does showcase a lot of potential. Sure, it is basic, and sure, it does sound like it's been produced via an iPhone 6 and recorded on a potato, but also sure, it has some fucking bangers. East Side of Sorrow is a genuinely great song, and there are other pretty solid ones. But aside from one or two tracks, this album is just around the middle, if you know what I mean. It's just consistently, like, passable, pretty good, decent, whatever. One of them. Apart from tracks such as Fear Fridays, which for one, why would you fear Fridays? And for two, it just sucks ass. Weird song, but anyways, this album is overall one that showcases a lot of potential and a lot of areas to grow and is solid, but nothing really more. as enjoyable as country has got recently, unless you count the Cora Jackson album as country, but that's more folk, in my opinion. But anyway, 6.1 out of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. When did I listen to? Oh, yeah. Listened to 13 projects. A couple came out midweek. But let's start off with one that didn't. Robin Schulz's Pink. Honestly, I'm at a loss for words with how bad this album is. It sounds like incomplete demos that every so often have the worst vocals you've ever heard crammed in for funsies. Think like Sun Will Shine, for example. Somewhere Over the Rainbow / A Wonderful World is another awful song. It's meant to be like a EDM combined cover of the two songs, but to call it a cover would be offensive to both songs because it's generally one of the worst songs I've ever heard. And there's just not really, aside from one or two songs such as Intro and the outro Waiting for the Sunshine, like that aside, there's not a single good sound here. Most of it is just bland, awful, and forgettable EDM you heard about 50 million times in 2012. And when it's not, it's usually just unbelievably terrible. And this has some horrendous moments, but for the most part, it's just bland and awful. It's so bland that it's awful. Do you get me? But sometimes it is like genuinely eye-catchingly terrible. Alright, tangent over. This album's one of the worst albums I've ever heard. 0.2 out of 10. Moving on to Coi Leraigh's Blue Moon EP from like Wednesday or something. And the thing that makes her music kind of fun just isn't here this time. The performances here sucked and the beats were awful. Liquor and Weed was bland and awful in every way, as was Wicked Butterflies, and the Rage track, Isabel Marantz, it was that type of rage that just always sucks because that type of rage that the song was in just sucks as a genre in the whole. Rage without rage equals bad music. Simple as that. But Still Dreamer was tolerable, and 321 Trust had appeal. Yeah, this isn't one of those that is completely devoid of quality, even though most of the EP does suck, as I do understand the appeal of one or two tracks, but I am clutching at straws a little bit with this one, because this does suck, and it has some unbearable songs, which isn't great when there's only 5 of them. To me, anyway. This was awful. 1.8 out of 10. Moving on to Smiley's Garden Boys, another midweek drop, and this EP just shows how much a project can be affected by a rapper who can't rap. 9 on Me had what might be Smiley's worst performance to date on a song and an awful Homie 61st feature. Among being 5 minutes long, should have been capped about halfway through. Because it just dragged on, man. Beat wasn't too bad though. Garden Girl sucked too, but the beat was fine. But yeah, it's insanely forgettable. I can't remember a single note from the song, I just remember the beat being okay. The lyricism was especially awful in the close of Ride My Bro though. It sucked, but probably had the best beat on the project. The beat was pretty good. If this was like anyone else, it would probably be a pretty good EP, but because of Smiley, and Smiley has no talent when it comes to rapping whatsoever, it sucks. Yay, definition of wasted potential, and in the end, there's a 2.1 out of 10. Hooray! Moving on to Friday, self-titled. Friday? Pretty sure this guy was on that god-awful XXL cypher, well, one of them, because they were both shit, and this did suck. The first few songs, such as like Stand By Me, had like some decent gospel inspiration that didn't sound too bad, and like they were tolerable, but after that it just turned into the most bland and hard to listen to Afrobeat, I guess. I think Lost My Way, that one sucked. The best part of this album was that outro that was an interlude, because at least it was listenable, and like most of the album, most of it was just awful. It didn't even have music, it was just a conversation pretty much. That's how bad the album is. I'm clutching at that to find something to praise. His vocals just suck. They just do. They're awful. Accurate representation there. They really are as bad as you'd expect if you heard the cypher, if not worse on some songs. And overall, this was awful, bland, and hard to listen to because of those goddamn vocals. And also, even with better vocals, it's just bland as fuck. So it would probably be almost as bad. 2.1 out of 10. I Bland music basically equals awful to me. Some people it's just like mid, but to me, awful. It sucks. It's the worst thing music can be, bland in my eyes. I'd rather listen to as much as Boosie's album is a 0.0. I'd rather listen to that because at least it's funny bad. But that was just a bore. Anyway, moving on to another bore, Baby Gravy's Baby Gravy 3. This just sucks. Not even funny this time. At least for like recent works from both rappers and probably the other two Baby Gravies, they at least had some funny moments, some interesting charm to them. Marvelous wasn't too bad from Young Gravy last year, but this just sucked. No Way Jose, just basic boring trap that's insanely unfunny and has some of the worst singing I've ever heard from Young Gravy on it. Among this, the last two tracks have already been released, and I think it's insanely lazy to just shove them at the end of the collab album, especially when one of them is Touch Grass, which is one of the worst songs I've ever heard. There is the odd tolerable track, though. Onomatopoeia was really fun, but for the most part, it was bland, unfunny, and pretty damn awful. I don't see the appeal at all with this one. I see it on other projects from them, but this one, everything just feels dated, and it just doesn't work at all. Yay! The whole shtick is just getting boring. It's usually fun when it isn't the basic boring trap, though, which is a real shame because it's almost never not the basic boring trap, and overall this just sucks. 2.4 out of 10. Moving on to Ashniko's Weed Killer, which is just weird. It can be punky, trap, all sorts. It's like a jack of all trades, but it doesn't succeed in like any of them for the most part, especially in trap. Wayne sucked, for example. Generally, the vocals straight up sucked too, and the lyricism didn't offer much, but the instrumentals, especially on the highlights, were really, really good. And they worked enough to make the album okay. There are highlights such as Cheerleader and Choco Cherry Python that were admittedly bangers, but this album was overall very mid and too all over the place and inconsistent in all departments to be anything cool. This will probably grow off me, to be honest. I do need to re-listen at some point. 5.4 out of 10. Moving on to Tim McGraw's Standard Room Only. I've not heard a lot of country this year, and the stuff I've heard has mostly sucked. And I thought this would be the same, and not quite. There were some fire tracks here. The instrumental on Paper Umbrellas was genuinely quite amazing. A lot of the tracks were pretty solid, but especially in the second half, the album just became a slog, because while it didn't do much that's utterly terrible, he even made a song with Small Town in the name that is insanely racist. Ooh. The song does still suck, though, that is called Small Town on this. And aside from that, and like Fool Me Again, as I said, it didn't do anything especially terrible. It just became insanely boring. Cowboy Junkie had nice things about it, for example, but just wasn't very interesting. It was decent, though. And overall, this album had some bangers, but had its misses, and it isn't the most interesting, and is overall tolerable, but nothing special. 5.7 out of 10. Moving on to Digga D's Back to Square One, and I've always thought of the man as one of the better UK drill artists out there, and here he goes in a more melodic confessional direction, or just basic grime. It's good, yes, but nothing that special. The lyricism sucks for the most part, apart from the opener, which is Fighting for My Soul, I think? Yeah, it is. The lyricism... Oh, no, I've already said that. The performances aren't too bad, though, apart from where they are, such as like Facade, but that song is still insanely fun because it's just so stupid. But he does usually rap about what he knows best, crime, but you know what, it just goes hard. Only real drill track here is ironically called Fuck Drill, and it's solid enough. But yeah, that aside, it's just decent enough grime that is decent at every level. There's nothing special about it, there's nothing bad about it, it's just decent. And overall, the album is decent. Key word. 6.3 out of 10. Moving on to Zell's Mosquito, which is a lot more punky than previous albums, but it does sound like video game music a lot more than some of his previous work. And is a step down for me. Songs such as the opener Punk sound like the intro to a reality TV show, and a lot of it, because of that, was insanely forgettable. The Mosquito also sucked as a closer, as it was an interlude that had an AI voice. How ugly is this real one? But the way bangers. Pop Out was hard, and Crystal Cove / Metamorphosis was probably the most impressive here. Overall, a lot of it could have been better, but this is hardly a bad album, and it has its moments. 6.4 out of 10. Moving on to Daddy Fresh, I made an album, and he did indeed make an album, and it was pretty good. As much as the rollout kind of sucked, the synths are nice, the instrumentals are, in general are good, albeit insanely basic. The vocals are great as usual, and he isn't always in his comfort zone on this. Usually is, for sure, but especially in like Limit to Love. But even then, there's still bops. He does experiment a bit with more ballady tracks such as Trying and Bitter being some weird German hyperpop thing, even though he's Icelandic. It's bizarre, but it also feels a lot like him because he's weird. That's his whole thing. He's also really tall, don't know. It's weird. Thank You, the opener, had a phenomenal instrumental and was just beautiful. But it was so good that he tried to rinse and repeat on a couple of tracks, and they obviously felt less genuine. And this did have awful tracks such as Shut Up, that didn't work for one reason or another. Lyricism or just being plain boring. Or both. Therefore, both in this case. Overall, he tries to not play it safe sometimes, but it's overall a safe project, let's be honest. But still, it's pretty good. It has its bangers, and his safe is better than a chunk of music, to be fair. Pretty good. Full of bangers. 6.9 out of 10. Moving on to Dorothy Moy, who defo stepped out of their comfort zone with Sandhills here. And honestly, my expectations after hearing this was like some sort of country stuff was non-existent. It was more folk, but anyway. I thought it would be horrendous, but I was wrong, I admit it. Pretty great EP, to be honest. The guitars on Back Then, the best song of the EP in my eyes, were brilliant. Sidelines was a basic banger. That followed it on. Sandhills was a bit of a slog, as was The View, although the latter had a better instrumental. The closer was brilliant though. I love the instrumental on Goodbye to Rock and Roll. Shame about how poorly the production was executed. Generally speaking, the production was solid aside from the closer, the vocals were passable, and the instrumentals, while sometimes basic, were brilliant. And overall, this EP is pretty quality. Nice surprise, this was. 7.1 out of 10. Moving on to Burna Boys, I Told Them, and I was pleasantly surprised at the quality of this. This album had great instrumentals that were interesting sonically, nice vocals and solid features. 21 Savage, GZA and J. Cole especially slid and were pretty impressive. 21 actually showed versatility for once and sitting on top of the world. The best song though was Tested, Approved and Trusted, which is perfect and probably his best song. But in the second half the quality did drop off with songs such as City Boys and the closer Taliban 2 being basic Afrobeat bores. Among this, the vocals were solid, but weren't amazing or anything special. And there were a few basic tracks that were still good but weren't great here. And they're even in the first half, which was incredible, honestly. But overall, this is a lot more versatile from Burna Boy than Love to Meet Me last year, which was incredibly mid, and a massive step up from previous boring albums. And overall, this one was actually pretty damn great. I was really surprised with this one, 7.2 out of 10. But at the top, of course, is Danger Mouse. Of course, is Gemini the Gifted One with Born Again. And as always, Danger Mouse kills it beat-wise. They were sometimes basic, sure, but they were so good. But some of Gemini's bars were cringe and corny, and sometimes the way it was mixed kind of sucked, especially at the start of the album in songs such as All I. There was also the odd dud such as Brooklyn Basquiat, which had a horrendous big interpolation. In general, I just don't like interpolations at all, because they always end up corny. Just make your own fucking song. There's very few good ones. However, after the streak of solid cuts, Reach the Sunshine by Lil Yachty, there's a good interpolation though. So, yeah, they good ones do exist. I'm not that biased. It's only reprises that I hate in every single way because they're just useless and unneeded. Just make your own song. Make another one. Lazy fuck. But, however, after the streak of solid cuts, the last three songs, the album's quality skyrockets. With beautiful songs such as Dear Papa, which were masterpieces in every way. Especially Dear Papa, that's the best song here by far. Overall, this has some phenomenal tracks, but is mostly just great instead of amazing. And as the odd track that's just passable. Great album nonetheless though, 7.7 out of 10. 23 minutes later, finally done. And after those busy weeks, we finally got a chill one. I'm shouting out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 projects, but I'm only going to listen to 5 of them. I'm going to shout out Blast's Six Tape 3, get it? Six Tape, Sex Tape. It's a collab EP with Bino Rido. 6 songs, 50 minutes long. Can't be arsed. Not really that interested. But if you are, give it a listen. This leaves us with 5 albums to listen to. Starting off with Midwest's E3. Doesn't have any features, but it has 12 songs and 34 minutes of runtime. And overall, it'll be a 5. And overall, why the fuck did you not put Tally on the fucking album? It's such a good song. Or maybe it's just because he was carried and he knows it. Because Denzel Curry's verse is so good. Moving on to Icona Pop, who probably haven't been relevant in a decade, but they made the I Love It song. They've dropped their new album, Club Romantic, which features Joel Corey, Rain Radio, Jaeger, Galantis, Vise, Ultra Nate, and Sophie Tucker. 15 songs, 40 minutes long, 3. Royal Blood. Had a fair bit of controversy, but they have dropped their album Back to the Water Below in recent times. 10 songs, 31 minutes long. It's probably going to be a 6, like every other. It's going to sound like every other Royal Bloods album, and it's going to be a 6. Bada bing, bada boom. Slow Dive also dropped. Probably the only one I'm really looking forward to. Everything is Alive. That's nice to think about. Anyway, 8 songs, 41 minutes long, 8. And finally, everyone's favourite singer-songwriter, pop artist thing, To Whoever Wants to Hear by Dream, that's dropped. Yay! It also has a Young Gravy feature for no reason. Actually, no, I get why there's a Young Gravy feature. He's the only artist he could possibly get featured on the album. That's slightly relevant because he's Young Gravy. He seems like the type of person who will be on a Dream album. 7 songs, 17 minutes long, 0. Fuck it. 0. It's Dream, for God's sake. He sucks. Yeah, actually, he just sucks in general. He does just suck. Yeah. So, expect a lot more album re-listens. Because I'm absolutely going to do them to keep myself occupied, because these 5 albums will do themselves. And there you go. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next week. Hopefully I won't private the video for 5 days again, because that's what I did last time. Sorry about that, in a bit. Dyke, I've still got to do the top 3 and bottom 3. Top 3 then, I need to get more central. Yeah, that'll do. Top 3 then. Number 3 is Future Utopias, We Were, We Still Are. By the way, when I do NDA lists, I'll have a separate thing for EPs. But for these, I'm doing both EP and album. But number 3, Future Utopia, We Were, We Still Are, 8.3 out of 10. Number 2, it's Genesis Owusu Struggler with an 8.6 out of 10. For now, I think that will grow off me though. But number 1, Mick Jenkins, The Patience, which has grown on me to a 9 out of 10 now, and it will probably grow on me more. Number 3 for the worst, though, is Lil Zay Osama's For the Trenches with a 1.7 out of 10. Number 2 is Dax's What Is Life with a 0.4 out of 10. And probably one of the worst things I've ever heard, it's already growing off me to a 0.1. Pink by Robin Schulz. See you in a bit. And by in a bit, I mean next week. And if you're talking the whole channel, then in a bit means tomorrow, because I'm going to a football match tomorrow, so yay. Random add-on, the Wyatt James album's like a 2.3 now, and because some of the beats are actually really good. Yeah, just wanted to throw that in there. See you next episode.